Welcome to the workshop midterm briefings. Normally today, this room would be filled with our students and faculty, and there would be coffee and Danish in the back of the room. Unfortunately, because of the coronavirus, we're doing this by videotape in compliance with university policy and really for the safety of everybody concerned. But we're going to persevere in learning about sustainability studies regardless of the conditions we're operating in. And in a real sense, the spread of this disease is an example of the fact that we live in one biosphere, and we need to devote ourselves to understanding it and protecting it and making sure that we're able to continue to thrive and grow and sustainably develop. And so today what we do in the midterm briefings is we provide each group with an opportunity to talk about their study, what its purpose is, and their methodology. And the goal for this midterm briefing is for each group to listen to what the other groups are doing and compare the methods and the kind of studies that are underway. And this is really how you learn the craft of policy analysis. You learn it by benchmarking against other groups that are doing work in the same field. And so we have, today we're going to hear about water reuse in New York City and energy independence in Northern California. We'll look at Iceland's climate action plan, and we'll learn about agroforestry policy and the National Climate Bank. And all of these things are very important. All these topics are very important, and I hope that we will learn from each other. We're doing this by videotape. Normally we don't videotape the midterm briefings, only the final briefings. So this year we'll do both, and you'll have an opportunity to see this really important part of our workshop as we go forward. So listen closely, and I think we'll have some really terrific briefings for you here today.
Good morning, my name is Daniella Simari, and I will be presenting on behalf of the team working on a water reuse strategy for New York City. I'd like to thank our manager, Caitlin Stath, our deputy manager, Bai-Hee Wong, advisor, Dr. Nancy Degnan, and our entire team for their hard work and dedication this semester. New York City supplies over 1 billion gallons of fresh water each day to over 9 million residents, not to mention the additional 3.1 million Manhattan commuters, to cook, clean, drink, bathe, wash laundry, and flush toilets with. This water flows from the Catskill, Croton, and Delaware aqueducts and makes its way into our taps. And the Delaware aqueduct, pictured on the right-hand side, is actually set to be shut down in 2020 to undertake a massive repair and restructuring, as it's currently leaking between 15 to 20 million gallons of water each day. Don't panic, though. This leak hasn't impacted our drinking water supply from the entire watershed. New York City is considered water-rich, meaning it has abundant water resources with the infrastructure to deliver clean, high-quality water. But what if it didn't? What if this water supply was interrupted by unforeseen forces? That said, New York City's water supply still faces aging infrastructure of its water systems, the continued stress on the city system of combined sewers from frequent storms, as well as the abundance of greenhouse gases being emitted from its wastewater treatment facilities. These wastewater treatment facilities actually produce the second highest rates of greenhouse gas emissions for New York City's government at 16% of their total emissions. And there are 14 of these facilities across the 5 boroughs that all produce methane, which is much more potent than CO2 in the grand scheme of climate change. All of this is to say that New York City's officials are beginning to recognize that whether taken alone or together, these issues are posing a threat to New York City's water supply. They want to address these issues through proactive rather than reactive strategies so that New York City's water system remains vibrant and healthy. And one of these strategies is a water reuse program. But what is water reuse? Whatever you want to call it, water reuse, water reclamation, water recycling, it all means the same thing. It's the act of taking wastewater, running it through a series of purification processes, and then redistributing that water for potable, which is drinkable, or non-potable uses. So now that I've provided some context for the issue at hand, I'd like to quickly run us through our agenda for today. I'll be answering who we are and who our client is, what our client has asked us to do, how we've structured the research, some of the preliminary findings of this research, and then finally what our next steps are. We are a Columbia research team working with the New York City Department of Environmental Protection's Integrated Water Management Team, headed by Alan Cohn, their managing director. And he and his staff ensure the resiliency and reliability of New York City's water supply. And this is done through conservation programs as well as public outreach campaigns. So our client, the DEP, has asked us to craft a roadmap for a municipal-level water reuse strategy for New York City. Our client has asked us to use 4 themes when structuring our research, and they are listed above, such as public health, technology, governance, and finance, and we'll also be summarizing the lessons learned within each. Before beginning our primary research, through expert interviews, our team's secondary research team did a deep dive into peer-reviewed literature and pulled out 10 reports and 10 peer-reviewed articles that they think succinctly fill out these 4 themes. The most important articles, 3 of them, can be seen here. Overall, our team and client vetted 23 experts across public and private organizations, and to date we've conducted in-depth interviews with 12 experts and are aiming for a total of 15 to 20 experts by the time we complete the final report. These themes and our secondary research provided a broad framework that was used to brainstorm almost 30 questions we had at the beginning of the research process. And from these questions, we narrowed down the most essential with our client, and they are the ones that we use to conduct our primary research as well as our continued secondary research. Under each of the themes, we've been asking our experts what has been involved in the maintenance of the system to protect people's public health. Under governance, we've been asking what are the organizations involved in a municipal level reuse program. Under technology, we've been asking why would a centralized, decentralized, or hybrid be most probable for New York City in terms of its reuse systems. Centralized would be a system that encompasses many buildings, while a decentralized would encompass maybe 1, 2, and a hybrid would include both. And then under the theme of finance, we've simply been asking what are the financial incentives to have a reuse strategy. So this is a visual of some of the people we've been in contact with, such as policymakers, program managers, researchers, and engineers. We've specifically been in contact with San Francisco Public Utilities Commission, Austin Water Utility, Orange County Public Works, Natural Systems Utilities, which is an engineering firm, as well as the Department of Health for New York City. We also hope to be in contact with international experts too. So now I'd like to run us through some of the preliminary findings from this research, beginning with what we found under the theme of public health. So our client has actually said that water-related public health outbreaks, especially from these reuse systems, are their #1 nightmare. And recently in 2015, New York City saw an outbreak of Legionnaire's disease from the bacteria Legionella that thrive in warm, stagnant water. The good news is that the experts that we've interviewed from San Francisco, Austin, and Orange County have all said that they haven't run into any public health issues, at least related to their reuse systems. And this is most likely because they've emphasized operations, training, and management of these systems, including frequent E. coli testing, as well as testing for Legionella and other infectious bacteria. Under the theme of governance, we've been in contact with, again, San Francisco, Orange County, and an expert from Matrix New World Engineering. Experts from San Francisco Public Utilities Commission had cited that interdepartment collaboration, as well as stakeholders, which are their government agencies, understanding each of their roles and responsibilities as being most important to completing and carrying forward a reuse program for their municipality. Orange County went so far as to build an independent oversight group to oversee the entire development of their reuse project, as well as built a public outreach campaign that was led by state, local, and federal officials, who all tried to build a groundswell of public support for the reuse system before it even took off the ground. And then an expert from Matrix New World Engineering, who has had experience in both the public and private sector, was able to give us better insight into how these two sectors interact. And she cited that regulations should meet the highest quality water standards available while still allowing for new technologies to be deployed in the field. And finally, under the theme of technology, our team has been attempting to narrow down best practices for reuse systems at different scales. And there are many different types of filtration and purification methods for reuse, and one may be better than the others depending upon the scale of the project. Interestingly, one engineering firm has pioneered a net zero energy reuse system, and this system simply takes the heat that runs from the wastewater in the reuse system and then transfers that heat to the building's boiler, meaning that it takes less energy to heat the boiler up. And we think that this is a really interesting and important decentralized example of technology, and it also exemplifies the nexus between water and energy. So what our team has learned so far this semester is just how central water really is for New York City, from its capacity to handle stresses on the built environment to continued population growth as well as our continued economic development. From here on out, our team is going to analyze our connected interview data and produce a final report and final briefing for both the DEP and the general public. And this is to effectively summarize and advise our client on the next steps for a water reuse strategy in New York City. We're also going to be looking more into the theme of finance, as we believe that these systems are a great liability to the city financially. So New York City would actually be the first water-rich city in the entire United States to adopt a municipal-level water reuse strategy. And New York City consistently places itself among the top cities in the world for innovative practices. And so that is to say, if New York City can pull off a municipal level reuse strategy, so can other cities. Thank you.